I'm going to bring up Bob and Blake. It's going to be the Bob and Blake show. And they're going to share information on marketing problems and marketing with other items to make these deals work.
Bob Steele's been around in this business for longer than I've been alive. And many of us are familiar with his book, his 300 Ways to Buy, Sell, and Trade Real Estate. Okay, these are ways other than with cash to buy and sell and trade real estate. That book I consider one of the sort of two testaments of exchanging. Okay, that's all the formulas and the important stuff. The key to it, though, and we all agree, is counseling. And so Chuck Chatham, another guy from Bob's era, has this book, The Secrets of a Lucrative Real Estate Career. Everybody should have this book, read it multiple times. This is about the counseling, how to do what we do in a way that we protect the client and, you know, as they say, pay your rent for the space you take up on earth. Just doing formulas and doing real estate without helping people, I don't find nearly as fulfilling, and it's not the nature of the business that we do. We're client-based real estate brokers instead of property-based real estate brokers. So that's a big difference. So I've been asking Bob questions over recently about some of the history of exchanging and how this has all happened. Bob's been in it since about 1965 and done about everything in the world that we've done. So what we'd like to do is start by going over some of the formulas that are in Bob's book. And these are all different ways to do deals without cash. And then we'll go from there. So, Bob, in the first formula in your book, do you even remember? We looked at it yesterday.
Unpriced.
Yeah. Unpriced is the first formula in your exchange book. And why don't you give everybody just a little minute on why is unpriced the essence of exchange? You know, why is that the first formula?
Well, thanks, Bob. I think that Vince had it with that lady that was up here on the podium a little while ago, that the price doesn't really matter. I was driving across the desert one time with a client in the middle of the night. We started running out of gas. And I finally said, best counseling I ever had. I said, how much is a gallon of gas worth? You have to have the people involved in it, because it's like a tree in a forest falling. There is no price if there's not people involved. So to get rid of the price and try to say, hey, where are you trying to go with your life? What are you trying to do? Chet Allen, you just mentioned, that passed away here recently. We were doing a deal with him, and with a client, he said, stop telling me about this big builder that was really telling us. Tell me about you. Tell me what you want to do with your life. Where are you going? Do this, and then we'll figure out how to do the rest of it. So when you get to the real estate, it's inanimate. It doesn't hurt at all. It has no feelings, nothing. So if you forget the real estate part of it and you deal with a person and you make it unpriced, anything that you're willing to go for. You have trouble with the title companies and so forth, but beyond that point, at any price that's agreeable to you, and that's the way you list them.
Right. And that's what we say a lot of times in the meetings. We'll say slash out that price and write whatever the value, right?
Whatever
because
the value.
it's what people perceive. I really like, though, when we hadn't talked about that, the gallon of gas thing. I think that's a great example, okay? When you're in the desert and it's in the middle of the night and you're running out of gas, a gallon of gas is pretty beneficial and pretty valuable, right? You'd probably trade something for a gallon of gas you wouldn't otherwise ever trade for a gallon of gas, right, in the middle of the day when you're in the city and go to gas stations.
We've done tests on this. We've had meetings, full-day meetings, in which you could not have a price.
I was there.
Were you at that one? We've done all kinds of those things, and it really is surprising.
Right.
You cannot put a price on it if you're going to come to this meeting. And you'd be surprised at the difference it
Right.
makes.
Yeah, that opens minds up a lot as far as what it is. Now, what I want everybody who has doubts in their mind about us doing this for 60 years, this kind of stuff, nobody's going to close on a deal that's not fair to them, are they? No. And so in the end, we're talking about benefits, and the sum of the benefits less the sum of the detriments. And if for every person in the transaction, the sum of the benefits minus the sum of the detriments is not greater after the transaction than before, it won't close. To them. And for each party has to have that or it won't happen.
And most of the time as real estate brokers, we're filters. We get in the way of the solution because we have an opinion and we shouldn't have it. We should let them do it.
Right. And so Bob's been doing this a real long time, okay? And he has always been an early adopter of the technology, okay? He was doing this before any of us were born, and we all, you know, here people are more experienced, so a lot of us have been doing it a long time, but if you look at the general real estate investor now, a lot of them haven't been through a down market, and the rest, they don't always understand the concepts we're doing, but you know, that we've been doing for 60 years. These are new to him, okay? Bob gets kind of bored of the old stuff, okay? He's done this stuff for so long that one of my favorite quotes he gave me recently about going to exchange meetings is, cap rates are boring, right? That's absolutely true. Some of this stuff to Bob gets totally boring. We're talking cap rates about investors and stuff. He's always moving on to the next thing. Okay, and so we're going to talk about the history here as we go through these formulas of things that are old hat to Bob. Then we're going to talk about some of the things that I'm doing recently and new stuff, and we're going to talk about what Bob's interested in as going towards the future. And remember, 50 or 60 years ago, people thought he was crazy for what we do on a regular basis, okay? 60 years from now, people are going to see the visionary part of it and see why he was thinking forward, and we'll get to some of that stuff here in a little bit. Okay, creation of wealth formula is formula number 2 and 3, I think, in Bob's book, 2 different versions of it. Everyone's asked me forever to draw them pictures. Miho, remember you asking me to draw pictures? I made a cartoon. Well, actually, I made a scribbled version, and my assistant made a cartoon. Notice the grass on there? Isn't that pretty? Okay, here's the creation of wealth formula. I don't know if you want to do this, Bob, or you want me to do it. Okay, I'll speak faster. Okay, anybody here, well, how many people are familiar with the creation of wealth formula? Right, so most of you people all know this, so we'll go over this real quick. You've got an asset. We say a house, it's worth $250,000. It's not the house you live in. Everybody remember, what we're always talking about is real estate held for investment, exchanged for other real estate held for investment. Anything other than that screws it up. So you've got a house, it's worth $250,000. It's got a debt of $100,000. That's that bottom existing debt, $100,000 debt on it. You don't want to sell it, you want to keep it, you want to activate your equity. You're going to create a $100,000 note on that property and use it as a down payment, because what you want to buy is that fourplex that's worth $400,000, okay? Because that's what you want. So you're going to use that new note, put it as a down payment on the new property. You're either going to go to the bank and get a $300,000 new loan, or you're going to just ask them to carry the difference, okay? This is the simplest formula. You went from one house, now you have a house and a fourplex. You've gone from a $250,000 value to depreciate, you know, work your basis, your wealth off of, to $650,000 worth of real estate, okay? Down there below, I break it down a little bit for you. What I have to emphasize enough, like with all exchanges, we start with $150,000 of equity. We end with $150,000 of equity. We didn't suddenly invent money in this process. Creation of wealth doesn't mean you invent money. Now we've got $50,000 equity in the house left, and we got $100,000 equity in the fourplex instead of $150,000 in the house. I have to remind everybody, and your clients and your investors, what do you think happened to your risk? How's your risk in this compared to the first one? No, your risk went through the roof. Okay, because you've got now $500,000 of debt. Okay, am I right on that? Yeah, $500,000 of debt that you've created. Okay, on $650,000 of real estate, that's not that's more risky than a house with $100,000 debt. One house with $100,000 debt. One definition of profit. This is what my dad always taught me. Definition of profit is payment for risk. You get people who want to get paid and taking no risk. That doesn't usually happen. Anyhow, this is creation of wealth formula. You know, one of the basic formulas of what we do using a note. Notice this isn't really a straight trade. We're just buying a property. It's still an exchange formula and equity marketing formula. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Steele?
Yeah, I might add something that came out of this room. It'd be interesting, I think, to most of us. Last year, Billy A. had a person that was here talking about cannabis. Do you remember that? Okay. Now let's use his formula, and as new things happen in the world, these formulas take on all kinds of different dimensions. So think about the creation of wealth for a minute. And then also in the book, there's one about agriculture, where you trade your futures crops. Okay, that's a creation of wealth. So when you're trading crops, and the one that we did in the book was
Tomatoes.
a couple of $1 million worth of tomatoes, traded over a period of a few years. But that guy that was talking about, that was really knowledgeable, was talking about cannabis to us in this room. So I went out and started doing some work on that because of my crypto work, and found out that the cannabis under the hothouses has got 4 crops a year. That's why they call it a weed. So now, if you guys would think about this for a minute, they got huge amounts of inventory coming. You could trade any one of those 4 crops that year. But you could trade it for next year, the November crop. You could trade it down 3 years, 5 years. That's the creation of wealth. You know the crop's going to come, and then you can negotiate whether you base it on the quantity of cannabis or you base it on the dollars when the cannabis is sold. So you negotiate that. But there's the creation of wealth, real money, that's hard dollars. It's like a single pay note. You're going to take one of the 4 crops 4 years from now. You get one of the 4 crops, and whatever, or part of it, or whatever the guy wants to trade. But that's a beautiful down payment. A single pay note, going to be cash, based on the security of that. Just like you use the building over there for security, you're using the crop of security, which you're going to sell.
Right.
But that's a creation of wealth.
So
A variation of it.
Right, just to reiterate, what he's saying is if you have a crop or any business that is going to deliver a product in the future, you can activate your equity today by trading for it now. Okay, and some of us
It's just a futures, like you were in the stock market.
exactly
Right?
like
It's a
trading
futures.
futures in the stock market.
Do it all the time.
Yeah, and so that's something that any of us in the room would say, well, gosh, how does that apply to me? Well, it may just not be that you want the whole crop, but you may have a $3 million building you want to sell, and the guy says, well, hell, I'll give you $2 million in now, and I'll give you $1 million in weed in 3 years from now. Okay, and you say, well, shit, I don't want $1 million worth of weed 10 hour, whatever. That's gonna go to cash in a couple of years. You're now gonna get the $2 million now. What's that guy done? He's got himself a property. What you've done, you got yours sold, and yeah, you're gonna have to wait. Maybe you charge him interest, right? Maybe, you know.
Negotiate it any way you want.
Any way you want. You say, so that's where Bob's saying you can do it versus on the price per pound, or you can do it versus on the dollars. And so you might say, well, hell, I think weed's gonna go down in value, so I want more in the future, but or maybe I think it's gonna go up.
Watch Stuart.
Stuart
You know what?
Watkins.
If I wanted to trade you $45,000 worth of cannabis 3 years from now for that $45,000 lot, would you do it?
Yep.
Absolutely. And the guy with the cannabis says, yeah, I'd like to spend some money now. I'll take that lot.
And you know what the guy with the cannabis is gonna do with his lot? He's gonna grow weed on it. You know it, right?
What I'm saying, the guy with the cannabis, he wants your real estate.
Right, and you know another thing, Stuart, because we've all seen his pitch. Stuart's interested in that kind of business. Stuart would say, hey, guess what? I'd rather even have just a share of your operation, and you come and put the thing, and you don't have to give me no weed at all. Because I'm just guessing, but I bet Stuart doesn't smoke weed. Just saying. Yes. What?
That sounded an awful lot like a call to me.
Like a call
Yeah, like
on a stock.
Yeah, for options. You're saying that in the future you're going to
Okay.
be giving him.
Yeah, it's a futures. It's an option to buy. You're not just buying. You're getting.
It's
You
not.
own it. You own
Yeah,
it.
it's a right. It's basically a right. Yeah, it's a future. Yeah. So you're getting future value. So a couple of little notes that I put in there. trying to get us to some of the other formulas. Okay. Another one that we want to talk about a little, because this is a real good subject. So the debt that we're putting on this, we want to talk about just things. A stutter mortgage is a thing we discussed. Anyone hear of a stutter mortgage? All right. Tell us what a stutter mortgage is, Bob.
Well, it's when you're creating paper, let's say you're going to create a note for 12 pence. Instead of, when you're writing the offer, you give them a stutter mortgage that you get 1 month a year, you don't have to make your payment. It's called a stutter mortgage. It comes out of an Orange Coast group.
Right. Or it could.
Dan Redmond invented it,
Right.
and we all used it.
Right, and here's the thing for the weed guys, for instance, might want a stutter mortgage where every third month they don't have to make their payment, they make a triple payment the third month because they're planting, growing, and selling weed. Now, a company with a campground might want a mortgage that doesn't have a payment here in the summer, most places in the winter, right? And that's sort of a stutter mortgage. Another kind that we talk about, and that Bob's been a bit of guy that could have an eye on as well, is a performance-based mortgage, right? So tell them what happens with a performance-based mortgage.
I don't know why we don't use this more often, but it's just that you base the payment on your mortgage based upon the income from the property rather than a fixed amount. And it's got so many advantages. You eliminate half the foreclosures.
Right, so let's just flesh that out a little with an idea. Okay, so if instead of a payment, and you're doing a deal with Dan Arnold on a development or something, and he's selling houses and stuff like that, and he's making a profit, but not always. The profit's different from month to month, okay, or year to year. What you do is say, hey, I want a mortgage. It's going to be 50% of your NOI, okay, and we're going to calculate it either every month, every quarter, every year, and you're going to have a payment. It's going to be 50% of your NOI, okay, your net operating income. If your net operating income is $1 million, he gets paid $500,000. But if your net operating income is zero, he gets paid zero, okay? So that's why Bob said it cannot be foreclosed on by definition, right? Because there's no way half of any number is not half of that number, okay? And so,
I think there's a real nice additive to that.
okay.
And that is, let's say that I've asked offering Stewart a mortgage back on this deal, that also you get a percentage of the growth. So you say, hey, I want 25% of the NOI for the payment on this deal, and when you sell it, I get 25% of the profit above the number that we negotiated. So the performance is based upon the income, but also the profit. So you got a performance mortgage. Yes, you get.
So that's a perfect solution when we're doing stuff like building things. Yes, Doug?
So I would assume that there's interest on this mortgage like everything else. But I'm thinking that if you're doing it based on profit and you're doing it based on a percentage, then you can conceivably not make the profit. You can not pay you see what I mean? You're not paying the full amount.
No, you don't know what the amount is. The performance mortgage that I've used a lot is the performance is interest only.
Yeah, but
And,
then, you got money up front so you can do development or whatever you're doing.
No, so you're coming at it as a developer, right? So
Right.
so if you were developing, you'd be paying the landowner, if he didn't put it in, a percentage of whatever you did. That's a performance based upon how you do, they get paid.
So you're making them a partner, basically.
Yeah, but without the problem.
But wait a minute, and we got to clear that. We're making him a partner, but it's not that kind of partner, it's
Yeah,
debt.
yeah,
Because
it's
what?
debt, partner debt.
Any debt is cheaper than a partner.
Right.
That's a rule
He's
of
right,
real
though,
estate,
isn't it?
okay?
You're letting the beneficiary of the performance mortgage participate in the profits, or he doesn't. So it goes down, you don't get so
But
much.
it goes on forever, there's no end.
No, you negotiate it any way you
Any
wish.
yeah, you can make any, so just like anything else, we're free to make any negotiations. Mr. Weaver, you had something.
Blake, we were doing this way before you. You were still at.
We know you're old, okay?
You were still at King's College.
Uh-huh.
Yes, but Bob, we go back 40, 50 years, and years ago we came up with a carryback, a creation of paper called walking backwards. Now, if I use that, there's nobody in this room is going to understand how you can sell your property and carry back a piece of paper walking backwards, and how that benefits the person that's taking the property. The walking backwards. In other words,
You're controlling the cash flow.
well, no, the payments.
The payment's cash flow.
That's right. So if you're buying real estate, you think it's going to go up, and we do a walking, maybe you ought to explain what.
Tell us about walking backwards. Tell us what that means to you, Bob.
It's less paying, less in interest.
What's happening to the principal, Bob?
It's getting bigger.
Big.
So what you're saying is the interest on the note goes down over time.
No. It
So why
doesn't
don't you
have
explain
to.
it to us?
It doesn't have to go down.
Negative amortization.
Ah,
It's just
there
a-
it is. Negative. But here's the thing. You buy a piece, let's use 100. Okay? I give you my property for 100. You give me back $100,000 walking backwards debt. Note, deed of trust, contract, whatever. Walking backward, he's not going to make any payments on that. That interest becomes, after a period of time, principal.
I just closed one like that, just exactly.
Now,
It's accruing interest, negative amortizing debt is what the banker would call it.
It's like a reverse mortgage.
Yeah.
Huh?
Reverse mortgage, same idea.
No.
Yeah, reverse mortgage, same idea.
But you're convinced that this land in 2 years is going to be worth $300,000.
So you give them a percentage of the growth.
No, I'm going to keep on holding my 100, okay? And my principal's going up
Right.
and up.
Right.
It's walking backwards.
Walking, he calls it walking backwards. We call it a negative amortizing accruing note. So that, and it works good for development land because we all assume in the future development land will be worth more than it is today.
We did it.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of us,
I don't know where it went.
shoot, right before the crash, this is what homeowners did, okay? That's what, I mean, that was part of it, and that shows you the peril of it, okay? If people know what they're doing, it's a very good tool. If people don't know what they're doing, it's giving a child a loaded gun, right? I mean, that's kind of, and that's one thing I've talked about it, comparing the book there, okay? Bob's book of 300 formulas, if you do not have the ethics and the integrity and don't understand the Chatham deal and the counseling a client and how that a client is a person under the protection of another, you're the devil if you're using those things, okay? You're gonna use those to hurt people. They're not intended to hurt people. These formulas are intended to help the public and help the clients do better. And so we all need to be counselors. We all need to understand a client's a person under the protection of another, even if we're the client. But we need to treat everybody fair and fair, because there's an example of that note. You could just take that note and then not ever pay on it. Well, shit, that's not. You won't ever do another deal, right? So that's my preaching.
Whoa, wait a minute. When you sell the property,
It pays off.
bingo.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, what can I do with that note that's
Yeah.
walking backwards?
Yep,
Is there a marketplace for that?
absolutely.
Well, bigger than a normal.
Yeah. No, people will buy that note for sure. Alrighty, let me get to just keep us moving forward here. Let's go to, will you slide that slide forward? And sort of get to the gist of what we're looking to do here. Okay, my goal, like I told you, is that you people understand by the end of this day what I'm talking about when I say 1031 paper. Mr. Steele told me that ain't called 1031 paper, it's called Sturgis-Dornbush formula, right? There's a guy named Sturgis Dornbush 50 years ago, pretty funny name, unless you're from South Dakota, but he, where he was. Anyhow, so bottom line is this, he did this stuff. I independently, came up with doing these things myself. It's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. These are just combinations of old formulas. So this is the 1031 paper. I'm hoping that at some point most people in the market will use this tool, or a certain percentage, and we will get rid of a lot of the bankers. Sorry, Amanda, we don't like you. I'm just teasing you. We like her, but we don't like bankers. But anyhow, so what we've got here, similar to that last little cartoon, you notice the grass is even the same, is we have, I'm gonna go through a series of properties, and we're real estate brokers, and we got clients, okay? We got one broker's got a house, okay? He's representing a person with a house, they put it on the market. Guy who comes along to buy it says, hey, I got a $25,000 RV, I want to buy your $100,000 house. So the house on the left, the thing on the left is a $100,000 house. Thing on the right is a $400,000 fourplex, okay? The $100,000 house on the left there, a guy comes along and says, hey, I got a $25,000 RV. I want to buy your house, okay? And I want you to sell or carry the rest of it. Because he wants that house, he's got an RV, and he needs to sell or carry. So you say, well, shoot, my client doesn't want that, but I'm no fool. I got a taker. Since I have a taker, I'm going to accept your offer subject to taking something else in lieu of your offer, okay? And this is the gist of what Bob and everyone else has taught us. In lieu of, okay? What we do when we exchange is we're taking one property in lieu of another. But if somebody offers you something you do not want, you say, I will take that, subject to finding something I would find acceptable in lieu of what you've offered. And I like to see John see your head bobbing a little, because you're going to get offers probably of things you don't want, okay? That's great, because now you've got more things to try to move through the process, okay? So right here, we got a guy selling a house. He doesn't want the RV, he doesn't want the note, okay? What he wants is that fourplex, okay? He wants that $400,000 fourplex. We tell him, well, shoot, if we can get you that fourplex, you know, through this process, will you do it? Oh yeah, sure, I'll absolutely do it. So, first step we do, and when we do 1031 paper, usually I pull money out to show people, those green things in our pockets are promissory notes, okay? They're promissory notes from the Federal Reserve, or I say they're IOUs from Uncle Sam, and even Bob will take an IOU from Uncle Sam, right? Anyone will take an IOU from Uncle Sam. So we usually give those to a qualified intermediary, who then gives it to the next people, and we do a regular 1031. So this is taking the Sturgis Dornbush formula, which is based on simultaneous exchanges, and using the extra tool that we got from Mr. Starker to do a tax-deferred exchange. So we now have a guy with a house, got a taker for the house with the RV, seller carry, and he wants to buy the $400,000 fourplex. So we're gonna say, okay, Mr. $400,000 fourplex, we will give you a $25,000 RV, a $75,000 first note on a house, and $300,000 cash from a new loan, or to make this all a paper deal, we'll say, and we want you to carry $300,000, okay? So just what we have the formula there. The new guy, the guy with the second property, is getting the down payment from buyer A as a $25,000 RV, $75,000 first note, and now we're going to just call it all paper. He's getting a $300,000 first note, carryback note on his fourplex, okay? So that's what he's getting for it. And of course, being exchangers and where we are, and because things aren't that simple, he says, hell, I don't want that. I want the $1 million property right there that's got the flat roof, because it won't fit in the slide without a flat roof. So if he can get what he wants, he says he will accept the deal. I said, okay, let's go to the other exchanger who's got the $1 million property, and he knows, he's got a well-counseled client, he knows what the hell he's doing. We're gonna offer the $1 million house guy, $1 million little retail center guy, a $25,000 RV. We're gonna offer him a $75,000 first note on a house. Anyone takes the first note on a house, right? We offer him a $300,000 first note on a fourplex. Again, anybody would take that note, even though not everybody might take the fourplex. And we're gonna have him carry back $600,000 in a new loan, okay? And we can go get it cash or a new loan. Now you see, if we use cash for those other two, you got to be getting all cash except a $75,000 note in an RV. He'll go ahead and close on that, okay? But he doesn't want that. Go ahead and click it again. What he wants is, of course, a $2 million property, because we're all holding real estate for investment, and we're all trying to go up because we want to qualify for 1031 treatment. We got to get bigger properties. So he's got a $1 million property. He wants to buy a $2 million property. I think some of you are starting to see how this goes. The guy with the $2 million property takes a $25,000 RV, which he might just drive off a cliff. He's got a $75,000 first note, a $300,000 first note, a $600,000 first note, and we're asking him to carry back $1 million, okay? This guy now has $1.9 million of paper or cash that he's getting for his final property. Go ahead and click it again, Mark. This is where I go through the summary, okay? This guy can take that up, or he can just accept it. If it's all cash, he's probably gonna accept it. If it's all paper, he might go up. Or if you're a down and outer, this is about as good as you get. You got all first notes, for God's sakes. You got 4 first notes. Who here wouldn't want 4 first notes instead of real estate? So, assuming all start free and clear, okay, we can do this with debt, but it'll confuse the hell out of you. Anyhow, buyer A, he gets his property 1 with whatever down, that's the RV down, and a seller carry. The seller 1, who had the house, gets his 4-plex subject to a new loan, either a seller carry or a bank loan. Seller 2 with the 4-plex gets a $1 million property subject to a new loan. Seller 3 with the $1 million property gets the $2 million property with a new loan. Everyone went up in debt and equity. It's going to qualify. As it continues, you see it becomes mostly cash and paper. We're brokers in this room. We're a meeting of competitors, so we can't discuss any amount that we'll make. But we can probably imagine that the amounts might be big enough. At some point, this is when this is point, it's supposed to say point, the brokers may accept the whatever down and seller carry note on property 1, and it could close with seller 4 getting all cash or paper. So that $25,000 RV and that $75,000 first note, if Rick Cook and I are doing the deal, Rick and I have to flip a coin to see who gets the RV, basically, but we're gonna do it. What did we do? We closed, look at the properties we closed. We closed $3.5 million with property. We can all imagine that our fee might equal more than the first property, the $100,000 house. So all we have to do is take that, and we've just closed. All our clients got everything they wanted, and we're done. So that is the 1031 paper little 4-slide presentation I do. The key to it is the in lieu of clause, right? That we're gonna do something else in lieu of what you got. The vehicle for all of this was either Uncle Sam notes or promissory notes for some of us that we print up ourselves, okay? Everyone went from real estate to real estate. The question I ask next is, does it matter that we made those notes and deeds of trust, except in the case where the guy at the end takes them? If we're getting new loans at each step of the way here, that doesn't matter at all, okay? The first vehicle, that RV, and the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. So my whole point, so we got an all paper deal. Other than the fact that the final person holds that paper, it's just a vehicle to go from one exchange to another, okay? So Nico's water bottle there could be that vehicle, okay? If the guy with the house, if the guy with the RV and said came with Nico's water bottle and said, I'd like to trade you Nico's water bottle for your house, and the guy says, you're crazy. So, well, okay, but would you subject in lieu of finding somebody to get it? Well, hell, the guy with the 4-plex might take the water bottle for his, subject to trading it to somebody else. He'll give the water bottle to the $1 million guy, give it to the $2 million guy. Brokers, we end up throwing the water bottle away, and we closed $3.5 million worth of real estate. And it didn't matter that it was Nico's water bottle, and it didn't matter that there are promissory notes and deeds of trust. With the notes and deeds of trust, we add a lot of benefits, obviously, to it, because everybody wants paper, right? So, it's a little tongue-in-cheek saying it doesn't really matter, because the notes do matter, okay? But the paper is the currency that we're using, right? As we go through. Yes?
This sounds a lot to me like a purchase contract with full rights of assignment. I've done that several times, and it always said, I'm a real estate agent, and I'm buying this with the right to trade it, sell it, and I expect to make a profit on it, so the owner knows he's happy with my offer, and he agrees, yes, I can make a profit. And I've done it a number of times.
And in this case, the paper was a contract. In New Mexico, what Kim was talking about, we can use a real estate contract. When we say, why I say paper instead of promissory notes and deeds of trust or mortgages, is because it does not matter. It's a piece of paper with an agreement on it and a signature by both parties. That's all that matters. Okay, I don't want to get too abstract with it, but yes. Jad. Yes, that's exactly what Stuart's point is. When you get a contract, an assignable contract, that's kind of what you're doing. It's a similar concept, but this we're actually closing. This is sort of a modification of the Dreammaker formula as well. We got a guy with an RV who got a house. We got a guy with a house who got a fourplex. We got a guy with a fourplex who got $1 million property. We're creating miracles for these people, and that's part of what it is. But anyhow, what I wanted to get to is is back to Bob. Okay, Bob sits here patiently watching us and going through these marketing meetings, which, you know, for what he's thinking of are old hat. Okay, he knows this stuff forever. The subject that a number of you expressed concerns about us talking about is cryptocurrency. Okay, that's the first time I've used the word, but that's I want to show you the relevance now here of it. Everybody's opinion about cryptocurrency and all, that doesn't matter, okay? Bitcoin's kind of proven that it's worth money. There are a number of them that go to money. It doesn't matter what the coin is or the token as long as you can do what you want to do. So that's where I kind of like to introduce this as a concept. If anybody here, instead of 1031 paper, took currency of any kind from any nation or blockchain cryptocurrency, the same thing works, okay? Same formula works. Just like people are familiar with ITEX and other barter credits, the same kind of things work. These are vehicles to do a deal, okay? There are some other benefits of cryptocurrency, that it goes up in value potentially as more people use it, okay? So we're trying to create a currency that then gains value. And that's about all I'll say, and I'll let Bob tell you. And I want you to understand and think about Bob with the vision that he's shown in this book over the last 60 years. He's looking out there in outer space compared to what we're used to looking at, okay? He's a long Hubble telescope looking out there to see the origin of the universe or something. He's talking about this cryptocurrency, and listen to him because it's Bob Steele, and he's done this stuff before, and 50 years ago everyone thought he was crazy.
Makes you feel old. Okay.
Yeah.
He's still crazy, yeah, that's okay.
Still crazy. Let me tell you when Blake asked me to do this, I tried to think, what could I do, because I've got about 3 or 4 years in trying to understand the crypto thing. What could I do that would really help this room on a now basis? Kind of like that guy did with cannabis last year. It was really wide open. So you give me just a couple of minutes to give you background, and then I'll tell you what I see where it could really help in here. First, it's right here in Tucson. You can go to a crypto meetup meeting. They're roughly right now about the same size as you've got here in this room. But when Bitcoin and stuff was up to 20 grand, there was up to 200 in that room. And every one of those people, every single one of them, has what Larry was looking for, was a path to cash. Every single one of them. And they don't know you exist. And so I said, if I could just get their attention long enough to show them, meaning you, that there's so much of the cash that you like out there in this form of crypto, and they don't know how to get into your business without going out of their crypto. And you're not going to get them out of their crypto. That's the thing that's laying the golden egg for them. It's just dropped like crazy in the last year. Yet 60% are still hold what they had. They won't go out of it. But you know how, in this room, to convert that holding to a piece of real estate. You know how to get them in a blanket mortgage or something. So that's the thing I think it would be most help to you in. This little thing here, this little piece of wire, it's a USB port, okay? It goes to what's called a Trezor, T-R-E-Z-O-R, wallet. So I could be sitting right next to you.
And your mic.
Or I could be sitting right next to you, plug this in, and I can transfer to you your path to cash through their crypto. Now, Ethereum, which is not Bitcoin, but it's way up there on the list of being a good cryptocurrency, they have a nice little diagram out that shows that the real estate broker and a title company will be out of business in about 10 years. And they're not talking about this room, they're talking about the house broker. Because They use smart contracts, and smart contracts are just what they say. They're smart. So Google went out and mapped the entire world, which we thought would be impossible, but they've got your driveway. So they're going to map every piece of property. They're going to have the title. You don't have to worry about it. The real estate broker is not going to be necessary. The whole thing is like somebody was talking about building a house in 48 hours. Beyond comprehension a few years ago. But this is what's coming. So, but nobody knows what you do as to how to help those people move with this different kinds of currency. So, along with the path to cash, there's another one, and that's the path to utility. So, Rick Koch has a gentleman here with him that is involved in Jade. So last week, I just went into the internet, looked up Jade cryptocurrency. Up comes an entire list of things that are happening in the Jade world with crypto. And what they said, the top one had Jade crypto utility token. Because I know the lingo, it's no different than an alligator or something else in our language. Because I know the language, I knew exactly what they were saying about. And I said the top one on that list is perfect as far as, I don't know the integrity of the deal, but that is a perfect thing, because what he says is this: token, if it's a coin, crypto coin, it transfers on its own blockchain. Bitcoin travels on its own blockchain. If it's a token, it's a cryptocurrency, but it travels on somebody else's blockchain. Okay, so I knew that. Now I know Jade, okay? The other thing was a utility. It said utility. So all of a sudden, I know exactly what it means, is that there's a utility to the deal. So watch this. The last three last year were big ones that came out, were Facebook. Facebook came out and they touched 35% of the population of the world. So they're going to be bigger than the US dollar the moment they finally get going. They're fighting everybody right now. But they're going to be huge. Right behind them is Google, and right behind them is Amazon. Now, out of those three, which one they're all going to have cash liquidity, but which one is going to have utility? That's every bit as important, and particularly in this room. Utility,
Explain what you mean by that, yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. The utility is you can use their coin to buy all the Amazon product. So if I asked you who in this room uses Amazon, every hand would go up. So now, do you need the dollar? No. Do you need the utility? Yes. So when somebody says they have a coin, for just a second, bouncing up. Coinbase is the biggest exchange in the United States. They have, they say in a really good day, they'll have 50,000 new people coming on on Craigslist, not Craigslist, on CoinMarketCap, 50,000 in a day. And there's 150 exchanges in the world. South Korea is the biggest. So all of a sudden, and this is all cash, okay? Now, inside of that, inside of that Coinbase, there's about 500 of them now that are fully liquid. You know Bitcoin, but you don't know Dash. I was offered Dash at 15 cents, and it's like $300 or something.
Ripple?
So, what is it?
Ripple?
Ripple. Well, Ripple's owned by a bunch of banks too. But okay, you've been in crypto a while now. So the point I want to make is that you and I think about dollars, and our clients think about dollars. Well, I'm sitting here saying there's 500 in just this one exchange that are cash, that your kind of cash. So any one of those can go to cash. It takes about 10 minutes to walk through from my treasurer through the Coinbase back to my bank account. So it takes me about 10 minutes. Then they play you for float, and they got you for a couple of days. You can't spend it, but the deal's done in about 10 minutes. And those people would love to have your land. They don't know how to get it. They're not going to sell their crypto because they're going to get taxed. And the whale, which they have a lot of them, that bought that, I didn't get into around 3,000, but a lot of them got in at 10, 15 cents, and it's now $10,000. So those are whales. They got huge amounts of assets.
So let's bring this back to our discussion a little bit. What are you
That's what I'm
saying?
trying to
So
do.
you've got these people with all this crypto. They're not going to sell it. Some of these people are multimillionaires. Some of them are damn near billionaires, and they're sitting on Bitcoin because they got it when it was a penny, and it's now worth $10,000.
And they want real estate. I
And
tell
they-
you, our nerds want real estate. Everybody that's with crypto wants real estate.
Right. So they're not.
Don't know how to
What
get
we're
it.
talking about, we're going to create debt against them. Basically, they're going to sign it, and just like we're using the paper and the rest, this is a vehicle to do transactions. And in some cases, you're going to make a bunch of money from that.
About a year ago, 2 years ago, something like that, we started a deal with Steve Streetman, 2 other brokers and myself. And now this is the first time, he's done so much work. Steve is a fond of information on this, but he's gone down a legitimate trail. We've got one in escrow, it's like, what I had for 50 million. And he's got, for the first time, we got lenders that say, okay, we'll take 25% of your non-liquid cryptocurrency down, and we'll give you the loan back. And they reneged and they pulled down to about 60%. But that's where we are now. And Steve has really done a whale of a job on this in getting, for the first time, lenders that will actually loan to us.
I have a question for Amanda.
Yes, sir.
Would your bank be willing to accept crypto as security for a loan?
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
Do
Do
there's
you
all
know of
kinds
any
of,
banks that would?
oh,
Not out there.
you can borrow all you want on crypto, but
Bitcoin? No Bitcoin?
Mark, there's regular lenders that will loan, but they're really expensive and they're very low.
Right. So let me. Yeah. So we're going to wrap up. We got a couple questions first. Sorry.
So if they're putting that as down, my understanding is with the crypto is it doesn't matter that they're using that as down, and I don't think that the bank has to really accept the cryptocurrency because they can cash out immediately if there's definitions at closing that crypto can't change within the parameter that you're comfortable with, right? Okay.
It's just like that RV down. Okay. It doesn't have wheels.
Yes, so this is all really confusing to someone that doesn't understand cryptocurrency and blockchain. There's a lot to this. I've been in this for many years. I was one of the earlier adapters to this. That was awesome, by the way. It was a really good, informative discussion that you gave. There's 3 things I want to mention. The first is that there's currently $250 billion US dollars in this space right now, and that's again. I'm going to repeat one of the points that you mentioned. It's taxable to these people once they convert it back to US dollars, and they don't want to do that. So if you're willing to take it and you can sell it yourself, then whoever sells it has to pay the taxes. And the last thing I want to mention is that it's pretty much it's private, it's secretive. You can send me cryptocurrency, I can send you cryptocurrency, and essentially no one knows of it happening. So you have that anonymity that comes with it too, and there's value to that.
How's the tax base set?
The base is what you paid for it. So your basis in your property is going to be your taxable basis if you take crypto and sell it. Okay. If you don't sell the crypto, I don't know. It's not a like-kind exchange. You still get taxed probably. I don't know. Yeah, that's an I don't know. Anyhow, I just want. So we got a couple more questions. Yes.
One last question. Where do we get Bob's book?
Where do you get Bob's book? Isn't it on Amazon? On Amazon. You can buy Bob's book on Amazon, and they'll have it at your home before you get home. It'll be there before you get home. And the Chatham book, I don't think that's on Amazon. That one you're going to have to go out and find. It's not very expensive. Yeah, it's out of publication. I've managed to buy dozens and dozens of them. Oh, you bought one on Amazon? Okay, yeah, it's on Amazon too. They just have a limited supply. It's not a publication. So what I want to, first of all, thank you all for listening to us for this education. We love you all, and thank you for your time. And I just want you to know that you were here to listen to Bob Steele talk about cryptocurrency in 2020, okay? In 2050, when you guys look back here, you'll say, damn, I got to watch Bob Steele talk about cryptocurrency in 2020. A guy who was 50 or 60 years ahead of his time for his entire life.
Big thanks to Blake and Bob.